Morning, bud. I wanted to give you some tips on what I'm seeing on your black box log. And one of the first things that I see is your quad has a ton of noise that needs to get filtered out here. So this will be a little bit longer of a video, but I think well worth it. What you need to do is, if you go, you can see some of the tabs I have up here. Joshua Bardwell has a good series. I'll give you a link on black box, introduction to black box. Actually, yeah, I'll find something for you instead of making a whole one. But I think through this you should be able to get a decent update of it. So you have the video and you've linked that up. It seems like you know the timestamp thing. So through the graph setup is where you can turn on and off different graphs. Right here I have the PID, or the gyro, plus PIDs for roll, pitch, and yaw. And you can see all this is the D. Usually what I try to do is get the colors the same. They generally do match up. So this is the P, or the D term for yaw. So this is high frequency oscillations. This is what's going to heat up your motors. You want to get rid of that. And I'll show you one of what it should more look like here in a second. So just a couple tips on the black box interface. What you can do to look at a certain segment of the log is go to a spot somewhere. So it looks like here you're just in a nice hover. So I'm going to go to, and I'll back it up just a little bit maybe. And this line is the current spot where it's looking at this darker red, or this red line here, which is shaded out a little bit when I'm back in here. And you can hit I, and then that will start the I and the O for input output, or I don't know, it's just I and O. We'll set, let me turn this off, the noise analyzer here, so you can kind of just focus on a certain segment, and then I'll set the O here. So now I'm just looking at this small segment of your flight, okay? So I don't want to, and the reason I want to look at a small segment because, you know, here you might be on the ground yet. It looks like you haven't taken off right here. So I don't want to get that noise as a part of what I'm going to look at here. And just a quick starter to check out noise, you can go down to your motors. Motors category here and hit this little analyze button, and you can click it for any of the different motors, and you can see it brings up this little noise analysis, or this analytical for vibration noise to that motor. So it's really looking at these oscillations on, like, these are what the PID loop is telling the motor to do. So when you're looking at this, this is the different motors, the different graphs. So if you look at just the yellow one, motor 3, it's telling the motor to go faster, faster, slower, faster, slower, faster, slower, very, very fast. And that's what warms them up. So we don't want to have that. And that's actually smooth. So here's another thing. If I hit the S key on my keyboard, that takes the smoothing out. So the black box software, you know, just the black box, like I said, the analytical software here, applies a smoothing to everything for display. So if you hit S and it turns the smoothing off, like you can see down here at the bottom, you can see, look at all that vibration. So where's that coming from? And this just gives you a little tip, and look how bad it is right here. Those vibrations, and I said before, making them faster, slower, warms up the motors, and that could be some of your issue. This data analyzer here is looking at those graph charts here, and that's the frequency of that noise. So if I look at motor 1, you should have they're going to be fairly consistent between the different motors. So you can see here. So what's going on here is this noise down here at the very bottom That's the actual quad moving. This noise up here, this is the motors, the vibration of the motors as they're spinning. So when they talk about filtering noise and a V-notch filter and all that, that's where you want to get these notch filters centered on this noise. And this is very similar to the noise I have. For, I think you're using 250, Racer 250 components, our noise is much lower than the default filters. So let me show you what mine looks like. Okay, so I opened up one of my black box logs after I applied my filtering and got that all squared away. Note smoothing is off. Look at my motor noise. Very little. Now I zoomed out a little bit, but let me zoom back into the 100% level. So the zoom's no different. But you can see how those are nice and smooth lines. I'm not getting that jittery noise. Well, what that enables me to do is push up my my PIDs without smoking or heating up a motor. And that noise could be manifesting in other things. Seems like you got the dropping the throttle issue squared away, but it's definitely something you want to tackle because it's wearing on the quad. So let me bring up my analytics on some of the motors, and you can see this is now that noise that we were looking at before for your black box log, that was after the filters. That wasn't before the filters, that was after the filters. This is my noise on the motors after the filters. And all you see down here at the bottom is the noise of the, this is the actual quad moving. It's very low frequency, rolling left, rolling right. And I'm really just kind of stable in a hover right there. And I'm going through the different motors here, and you can see there's no spikes at all. So that's a drastic difference to what you had. Now, what you need to do is enable some things in black box so you can see the pre-noise or pre-filtered noise. So here's the pre-filtered noise on this setup. Let me go down here. I don't know if I had this enabled. Actually, I don't think I have this enabled for this one. I have to go because this is the gyro pre-notch. What I want to do is set the once it's set, you can't change it. I think I had the notch filters set. Hold on a second. So yeah, this is my noise pre-filters after I soft mounted my motors. So you can see this is the same. You had huge spikes. This is the same. So I have much less default motor noise than what you were getting in that log. And I can narrow it down for a certain area. And that's what you really want to have. So you're not relying on the filters because the filters add delay. So I haven't went through and tried to minimize my filtering, but you can see on mine I have there's a couple filters here, so let's just talk about this. So the first is a gyro filter and it's called the low pass filter. So this is it acts as a line. It's almost like a graph, and imagine a graph going kind of down the screen like this and out and away. So noise that is just above on 70 Hertz or just above it is filtered the most, and as it goes out farther into higher frequencies, that's not filtered as much, so it kind of tails off. So that's on the gyro. That's the gyro low pass filter. So I move that down. I think the default is 90 or 100. The second filter now is the gyro notch filter. So you have two gyro notch filters. So you have one here. Now these are a V shape, so that think of the attenuation this way, that it's a graph where it goes up from the bottom to the middle of the gyro notch filter, which is right here at 1800 hertz, and then back down to the end right here. And noise that's centered on that is attenuated the most, and as noise is off to the edge on either side here, it's not attenuated nearly as much. So the intent is to center this first gyro notch filter. You have the low pass filter. They say anywhere above 50 hertz. I don't know why it can't be down lower. I've questioned that many times myself, but I haven't done it yet. But to bring it down to, I don't know, somewhere down here, because this is the noise from the movement. So if that's the case, why can't we move it way down? But if you go on the wiki for Betaflight, Boris, the developer, says it should be anywhere above 50 hertz. So I haven't messed with it, kind of relying on that. So I took it down to 70. Tried to set this. It looked like my motor noise was generally centered, as you can see here. It's generally kind of centered on the 180. So I set my gyro notch filter there. Then you have another one. So this is the second resonance of it, which I elected to set it at 380 as the center. And then you set the lower, for both of these, you set the lower limit. So it's 380 as the middle, and then the start is at 280, and then whatever, so that's 100 hertz. So then it goes 100 hertz above 380 as well. Same thing, 180, took it down to 80, so that's 100 hertz, goes up to 280. So that's how that's set up in Betaflight. Finally, you have an additional filter, so that's what filters out the noise that gets to the gyro of the craft. But then you have an additional filter on top of that with further filters the noise for the D term. So again, my motor noise is centered on 180, so I put that on 180, and then just took that down to 90 instead of 80, and have that centered here. So I got 1, 2, there's not much noise up here, so 3, I guess, 4 filters on the noise, and I don't even have that much noise. And you have the same, you have 4 filters, but they need to be moved around because they're not being that effective. And you need to try to dampen out the noise too if you're into doing some soft mounting of your motors. So that's the first thing I would do. Let me hook up Betaflight to show you where you set these things. So in Betaflight, go to the tuning, PID tuning tab, and then select the filters settings. And right here, so you can see the low pass filter, I have it 70. I have it's kind of confusing because notch 1 is the farthest to the right in this graph. This is notch 1. This is notch 2. I don't know. To me, that's not intuitive. It should be the other way. But so notch 2 was on 80, 180 centered, goes down to 80. 180 centered, goes down to 80. And then notch 1, you can see that. And then here's the D term. There's a low pass filter for the D term as well, which I also have set at 70. And then 80, 90. And then there's a yaw low pass filter, which by default is 0, and I just left it at 0. So that will help reduce your noise. The first thing I kind of skipped over because I didn't have Betaflight up yet. But to get this graph down here, what you want to do is turn on your do a custom graph, and then select debug notches, and that will show the graph, but it's going to be blank. So if I turn that on, you're going to see it will double up. See how it doubled up everything there? So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. The reason it's going to be blank is because there's no data by default. for the notches, for the pre-filtered, get that squared away. There's no data in the black box log by default for pre-filtered noise. So to turn that on, before you do a flight, to capture that data, you need to go to the CLI and type debug. Hold on. Alright, sorry, you just can't type debug. You have to type get debug. Okay. So by default, this is set to none, and that's why you get no data once you set that graph up for this log. However, you can set this to get kind of developer data, basically. And what you want to, so there's two settings in here that you could look at. The first is the gyro. The gyro will give you with zero filtering, it will give you the noise that is coming out of it, that the gyro is reading. Essentially, your gyro is reading that noise regardless. It's the next step after it reads the noise is it's applying filtering. So if you put debug to gyro, you're just going to see what the gyro sees straight up, no filtering whatsoever. So that might be interesting to look at, do a flight, see what that's like. However, that's not, that, I guess that can start you to set the limit of the low pass filter. So it can help you set that first low pass filter for the gyro and the D notch. But shortly after you do that, well, now you've set that filter, you want to see, okay, you want to set your low pass filters first, and then set your notch filters, which are these, the notch filters are these ones, these graphs up here with the centers and the two sides. Well, to set the notch filters, you really want to see, well, how effective are my low pass filters, right? So to do that, after you set your low pass filters, you're going to come in and change this to your debug mode to notch. What that will do is shows you the noise after, so it doesn't show you the raw gyro noise, it shows you the noise after the low pass filters are applied. So you hit set, you type set debug equals notch. Hold on. Sorry, you type set debug underscore mode equals gyro or notch. You can see now it's working down here. I forgot that it's underscore mode. You could see it right there. When I got that debug, it actually returned the variable for debug underscore mode. Of course, make sure to type save and hit enter, or that setting won't hold, it won't stick, and then go fly. And then that is then going to give you the noise that you can hit the little analyze buttons here for to set your notch filters. I would go ahead and get that all set up, try to get that noise reduced, and then we can move on to other things after that. Send me the updated logs if you want some more help. Thanks.